Right. Hello, seventh grade, Zach. This is Mr. Prater coming to you on February the 17th. It is Ash Wednesday, so happy start of Lent to the OLP family. Now, as we talked about in yesterday's meeting, which was the first Zoom for our digital classes, our distance learning, we are going to go to just the bare bones of the history. I will be recording my videos here and be sending you the video files of our class to study off of. I post to Digital Academy the same resources minus the today's mystery topic. And yeah, we'll have classes for about 45 minutes or less. All right, let's get started today. I'm going to share my screen here. Today, we're going to learn about art and culture in Heian. This is section 2 of the chapter on Japan in the Middle Ages. The key words to know for this section: court. Court is a group of nobles who serve as advisors to a ruler. Zen. Zen is a form of Buddhism involving quiet, thoughtful meditation. Lady Moritsuki Shiboku is a Japanese writer credited with writing the world's first novel. Japanese nobles create great art. Okay. In 1794, the Emperor and Empress of Japan moved to Heian, a city which has been renamed to Kyoto. The nobles who followed created an imperial court. These nobles had little to do with the common people of Heian. They lived apart from the poorer citizens, and they seldom left the city. These nobles, they just stayed in Heian, and they decided to stay apart from the ordinary civilians. These nobles loved beauty, and they made the court at Heian the center of a golden age, and of a golden age of art and learning between 794 and 1185. How long of a year span is that? Anybody who cares to guess? That's right. It is a 300-year span almost. 290. Japanese literature. These nobles dressed in beautiful silk robes and carried decorative fans. They were also lovers of the written and spoken word and spent many of hours writing in their journals. They were writing in Chinese, and the early days, because as we had learned yesterday, the Chinese had come in and allowed the Japanese to share their language. The Japanese really didn't do anything to change it until 1100 AD. So from 500 to 1100, the official language of Japan was Chinese. Men usually wrote in Chinese, but the women, they adapted the language and usually they wrote in Japanese. As a result, women wrote most of the major works of early Japanese literature. Japanese literature. These nobles dressed in beautiful silk robes and carried decorative fans. They were also lovers of the written and the spoken word and had spent many of hours writing in journal. Oh, this is the same slide. Lady Murasaki Shiboku. Lady Murasaki Shiboku is probably the greatest of these early writers. Around 1000 AD, she wrote the tale of Genji, often considered the world's first full-length novel. The tale of Genji is a story of a prince whose name is, you guessed it, Genji, and his quest for love. During his search, he meets women from many different social classes. The lower class of women who work the fields, the middle class of women who go and work in the shopkeepers for their husbands and sell wares. as well as the high class of women, those married to the nobles, and those who come from noble families who run the government of Japan. Heian art and architecture. Visual arts were popular among these nobles, particularly painting, calligraphy, and architecture. These paintings were made in bright, bold colors. Most Heian architecture was based on that of the Chinese capital, which is Beijing, the Forbidden City. Other architectural styles were simple and airy. Airy because there was no air conditioning then, so the walls were left kind of open. That's a little bit of a danger for Japan, as if you had looked up yesterday, the Japanese tsunami that struck in 2010, causing the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster. Wood houses and tiled roof often featured large open spaces, though again the walls were not super thick. We're not going to be that protective against the tsunami. And these houses that the Japanese created were surrounded by elegant gardens. Plays and performing arts. Performing arts also flourished in Heian, gave the nobles their form of entertainment, and they were brought even from the theaters of Heian into the Heian court, eventually leading to a form of drama called No, which combined music, dance, and speaking parts. No plays often presented the feats of great Japanese heroes. Buddhism had come to China, and that's why the slide is Buddhism changes. Common Japanese people had no time for the long, elaborate rituals practiced by the court. Both groups were deeply religious, however. The Japanese introduced important changes to the Buddhism tradition, which had been brought over from China. In turn, that Buddhism tradition had been brought over from India. Some new forms of Buddhism blended elements of the Shinto, the traditional Japanese religion, which we had talked about in yesterday's class. Other forms were quite unique to Japan. One very popular form, called Pure Land Buddhism, did not require any special rituals. Instead, Pure Land Buddhists chanted the Buddha's name over and over and over again to find enlightenment. This, again, just chanting the name cut out the elaborate rituals of the Buddhist rituals. In the 1100s, a new form of Buddhism called Zen developed. This is Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhists believe that neither faith nor good behavior led to wisdom. So what did they believe? Instead, Buddhism should practice if you're a Buddhist, you should practice self-discipline and meditation or quiet thinking. The ideas of the Zen Buddhists had appealed to many Japanese, especially the Japanese warriors who worked for the clans, who kept control of their city through having the more money and the bigger army. As these warriors gained more influence in Japan, so did Zen Buddhism. They spread it along to the places that they conquered and even spread it back home to their homelands, getting their families to switch and convert to Zen Buddhism, maybe from the Shinto or maybe from other forms of Buddhism. And that is where we wrap up the slide presentation. Now, just to recap, go backwards and recap. Heian is the capital of Japan. It is renamed Kyoto in future years. The nobles live in Heian, seeing as it is the capital and where the emperor lives. The emperor and the empress moved there in 794. The emperor and the empress who rule a city tend to want to be away from more common folk. The courts that surrounded the emperor and empress were very interested in the arts and learning, especially between 794 and 1185. The nobles, they got their fashion sense from the arts of their area and around the world. They got their inspiration for education from the Chinese, but many women developed the language of Japanese, including one of the most famous women of Japan, Lady Murasi Shiboku, who wrote the Tale of Genji, considered to be the world's first full-length novel. Heian art and architecture developed from China in their Chinese capital in Beijing. The wood tiles of the house left for open concept, which is a part of the traditional Japanese religion. At this point, I introduced again the Fukushima natural disaster, which was caused by a 2010 tsunami that attacked Japan. Now, a tsunami is a large 50-foot or higher wave that is coming from the ocean and affects land. Performing arts flourished by the nobles, creating a new form of drama called the No, and the No talked about just Japan specifically. Buddhism comes to Japan, and some elements of Buddhism change form and adapt to fit the Japanese lifestyle. One popular form, the Pure Land Buddhists, did not require any special rituals, and another form developed called Zen Buddhism, which just chanted the name of the Buddha over and over and over again, and practicing meditation and self-discipline in order to achieve the goal of Buddhism, which is inner peace. Now, going through that review, now we get to the questions. All right. Why do you think that the nobles of Heian devoted so much time to the promotion of the arts? The nobles of Japan, they had time because they were living together in the same city. There's one answer. They're living all in the same city. They're not spread out among Japan and have to travel to meet the emperor. They also have the time because they live separate from the civilians, ordinary people. They are not hearing their problems. Question number 2. Identify the name of the author who is an author of what is considered to be the world's first novel. Now, the world's first novel is believed to be the Tale of Genji. And I'm going to go back to the slide to pronounce her name correctly. It is Lady Murasaki Shiboku. Lady Murasaki Shiboku. Question number 3. What are some of the art forms popular among the nobles of Heian? For this answer, what you should put is the No, architecture, painting, Buddhism, and gardening. Forgot about gardening, as well as painting, calligraphy, and architecture. All right, so to recap that third answer again, the No, painting, calligraphy, architecture, gardening, writing, and the practice of Buddhism. Question number 4. What did Pure Land Buddhism require of its followers? Pure Land Buddhism had developed just chanting the name over and over again to find enlightenment. That's all it had required. Zen Buddhism I'm sorry, I explained this wrong before. Zen Buddhism requires just that the Japanese Buddhists look into themselves, look within themselves, practice self-discipline and meditation. All right. And that is the phrase that defines the central practice of Zen Buddhism, meditation and self-discipline. So again, number 5, meditation and self-discipline. The challenge activity that I like to end my classes on, drawing inferences. If you were a noble in the Heian court who did not have to work, what would you do all day? Write a journal entry in the style and manner of a Japanese noble depicting a typical day. I look forward to hearing that. Thank you again for watching. This is Mr. Prater with the Social Studies class for Our Lady of Peace School. I'm going to end the recording here. So to all of you out there, hope you have a wonderful day and keep on learning.